Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench.
Hello, welcome back to Fighting on Film. Now, off the heels of U571, we're back with another war movie review for you. And this week, we are reviewing a film that doesn't actually go to a battlefield or show any real war, with 2000's Tigerland. Now, this film always gets put on those sort of underrated war movies you haven't seen. These underrated war movies will blow your mind. Like Tigerland's
if we asked
always
ChatGPT what his favourite underrated Vietnam War movie is, he would probably say Tigerland.
Take a big drag on an American Spirit rollie, and it would be like, "You've not seen Tigerland, and you can't see you review films." Yeah, it'd do that, wouldn't it?
Totally would.
It really would. That's harkening back to us calling ChatGPT a film bro. If you're not aware, there's two episodes ago for the newbies. Yeah, Matt, maybe you should just dive into production this week. Give us a rundown.
I think that's probably the best way of doing it, isn't it? Directed by Joel Schumacher, best known for Set 'Em Up's Fire, The Lost Boys, Falling Down with Michael Douglas, which is a good movie.
Incredible film.
Two mid Batman movies, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
The one with the bat nipples and the bat credit cards. That one.
Bat nips, yeah.
The most 90s consumerist Batman that we ever had.
Yeah.
That one.
I could never get into them. Phone Booth and Phantom of the Opera. Schumacher has had one of the most eclectic careers imaginable. Written by Ross Clavin and Michael McGruther. This was their first, I should say, writing credit.
Oh, wow.
And they've never really had anything as serious or big since, either of them. And I think both of them have done a little bit of acting in various places and some other screenwriting stuff, but this is probably their biggest piece. Most notably, I think the cinematography for this was done by Matthew Libatique, who is extremely well known and has had a very successful career. And I think arguably the cinematography on the film is possibly one of its best features. I don't know what you think about that.
For that. Yeah, it's good. It's interesting to say the least. Yeah.
So a smattering of films that Libatique has worked on. Requiem for a Dream, The Phone Booth again. Let's see here. Iron Man. Miracle at Santa Ana, the Spike Lee movie, which is another war movie. Iron Man 2, Cowboys and Aliens. More recently, he worked on A Star is Born, Birds of Prey, and then he's a frequent collaborator with Darren Aronofsky, and worked on The Whale most recently.
Right, because I knew it was shot in 16mm, wasn't it? They digital shooting. Yeah. That stands out. That's a good choice.
It does. And it's very grainy in places, and it's a little bit washed out, especially towards the end where they're in the swamp. It's very almost monochrome, in fact.
Yeah, it feels humid, doesn't it?
It does feel humid. Distributed by 20th Century Fox. The budget, I believe, from all the sources I could find, and there is not a lot written about the production of this film.
Really not.
Anywhere, really. The budget was around 10 million, which is sizable, certainly for a production like this. Box office is the most surprising part of this, and the box office came in at under $150,000.
Yeah, that's a flop.
And I could not for the life of me find out why. It's an R-rated movie, which was apparently, according to both Farrell himself and one or two other sources, it ran in 5 theaters for about 7 weeks, which screams to me eligibility for awards season. But I honestly could not find a reason for why this film was, had such a small theater run.
Yeah, I remember it coming out on video and DVD Like, and
Yeah.
obviously, I think it had a theatrical run over here, but it must have been a very small one,
Mm.
if at all. I know that there's a review that we found that was a press interview from Farrell where he was saying, yeah, they showed it in
Yeah,
five
RTE.
screens,
Yeah.
RTE at the Dublin Film Festival in 2001, and he's saying, oh wow, there's more than 10 people here for this interview. Like, that's amazing. Just saying how little reaction they'd had in the States to this movie. It's very odd. Yeah, couldn't really get to the bottom of that one myself either.
It's a bit of a mystery, and if anyone knows, do let us know because I would
Yeah,
be
please do.
fascinated to know. Um, Military advisors on the film were provided by our friends at Warriors Inc., Dale Dye
Yay!
and co. Uh, I think Dale did some consulting on it, and then he sent his XO, Michael Stockey, who is
Mm,
also a Vietnam vet, down to lead the 1 week boot camp that they did. And then from that same interview with RTE, or the writer of the I think it was like a screening that they were doing, or at the film festival.
right.
Um, Farrell said, "It was pretty physical, and I'm a lazy bastard. We ate rations, stayed out late, and were woken at 2 a.m. and taken out and shown how to take apart an M16 and put it back together. Their job, the Warriors, was basically to teach us and train us, take us through, make us run. I went into the boot camp thinking I was going to mess around and be as cocky and cheeky as I could. But then when I got there, I realized the only reason they were there was to actually help us, which I thought was a really interesting parallel with the film. So he's gone into it thinking, I'll do what I'm going to do in the film.
Yeah.
And then he's realized, oh, wait, no, I need to actually know this stuff
I
in
need to
order
know
to
it to be
make the
able to do
film.
it on the film. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah,
So I thought that was really interesting. But
that's
that
good.
basically rounds out production for this one.
Well, fair enough. So, as always, I've dug out a retro review from the archives, and this one comes from BBC I, if anyone out there remembers that website.
Wow.
Before,
That's
yeah, in the
Blast from the past.
nostalgic. Yeah, remember BBC Choice before it was BBC Three as well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh,
digging out the
that's
references
going
for our
back.
American listeners there. They'll know exactly what we're
No
talking
one's going
about.
to know what the hell we're talking
No.
about, but yeah.
So yeah, it was a short, before the BBC News became a thing, it was like BBC Interactive. It was this whole thing. Anyway, so this review comes from Ben Falk, Tigerland 2001. It's a DVD review, but I think it's quite a good one. So I'll read you a few selected paragraphs. Who would have thought director Joel Schumacher, purveyor of such big budget glossy pulp as Batman Forever and Dying Young, would have been able to pull off this unexpected delight of a movie? Despite his unusual ability to spend more time on set design than he does on actors, Schumacher handles the more intimate setting with great skill, aided by some great acting, deft cinematography from Darren Aronofsky's cohort Matthew Libatek, and a phenomenally charismatic central performance by relatively unknown Irishman Colin Farrell, harnessing all of Boz's intensity, courage, loyalty, and anger in one very magnetic and okay, good-looking whole Farrell more than earns the plaudits which have been regaled upon him for the role. This man is going to be a star.
Pathetic. I'll give him that.
Yeah, I find it
And he has.
interesting
He did.
that the review, although it does talk about Vietnam, it is a lot more hinged on isn't Farrell going to do well? A few reviews from the time were more excited about what Farrell was going to do after than the movie
Yeah.
itself, I found. And then I think over the
Well,
years, this has become more of a cult film, more of a
yeah.
revered classic over the
Yeah.
years.
I think so. It's definitely appeared on more and more lists, hasn't it? As we mentioned.
As I
I think you're
mentioned
going to
at the
mention
start.
it in a moment, but Schumacher fought hard apparently to get
Yeah, he
Farrell for
did.
the film.
Yeah. Apparently, as the story goes, that Schumacher was getting on a plane and Farrell gave him his audition tape and he shot it in a hotel room with his sister, like doing parts of two characters, and he had a cigarette on the go and he was talking about, it was a monologue. I don't think actually makes the final cut. You can find it on YouTube, actually. You can find, it was part of the DVD special features, Farrell's audition tape. You can find it.
Yeah.
And then he was commanding like 2.5 million after, and he
Mm.
starts on Bally Kiss Angel of all things, and he becomes this big star. So talking about Farrell, there we should probably go into the cast. What a fantastic segue! So starting off with Farrell, he plays Private Roland Boz, your main protagonists. Now he's an Academy Award nominee, Irish actor. This is only his third film credit. Tigerland. He appeared in Tim Roth's. I forget the name of the film now because I didn't write it down. Let me just check. Sorry.
Just to parallel what you said to me last week, it is kind of your job because you're on cast to write down the names of the films.
You fucker. You got me. You got me.
Oh god. We do this. We go, that one be important. We don't need to mention that one. Then we mention it, and we're like,
And then we
oh,
talk
yeah, we should have
ourselves to
written that.
mentioning it. Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Came out in 1999. I know that. The War Zone. There we go. So yeah, he appeared in Tim Roth's The War Zone, which is a very, very harrowing film about sexual abuse. It's horrible. I was talking to my wife earlier about it, and I said Gary Oldman and Tim Roth, two of the most revered British actors of that late 90s period, and they both go, oh, let's make very harrowing directorial debuts. I find that very interesting because Neil by Mouth is superb. Anyway, getting back to the film. He was later cast, Farrell was later cast in Joel Schumacher's blockbuster 2002 Phone Booth, which I think is a really good film. In terms of war films, though, he starred in Heart's War in 2002. In 2004, and I completely forgot this film even existed, he was the lead in Alexander, about Alexander the Great. Yeah. Other notable roles include last year's Banshees of Inisherin, that just took the awards circuit by storm. And he's played the Penguin in Batman 2022. And at the time of recording, that show ceased. He was going to have his own show, and it ceased because of the strikes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he adopted a Texas accent for the film. And he spoke to The Guardian in 2000 about doing it. He said, a lot of pints were drunk in Texas. I went there by myself for a while before the film started, and I just hang out in bars, chatting to people, trying to do it that way. But you know what? I found it very difficult to swear in a Texan accent. And I must admit, there's times where it wavers for me. But it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You can tell he's not
one where
Texan.
he says, there's one where he says shit, and it's just like, I felt like he was going to say something else.
His accent forces its way through. It can't help it. And as I say, as Matt mentioned, this movie is just full of relatively unknowns at the time. Now they're actors that you always go, oh, they're from that thing I've seen.
Yeah.
Very recognizable faces. But at the time,
early days for a lot of them, wasn't it?
Were not known, yeah, as we'll see as we go along. So Matthew Davis plays Private Jim Paxton. This is his first film credit. He'd go on to appear in Pearl Harbor in 2001, and he'd later find fame playing a recurring role of a vampire hunter in The Vampire Diaries and its subsequent spin-offs. A lot of these character actors just have really extensive lists of credits, so I've cherry-picked the best ones for this week. Clifton Collins Jr. plays Private Miter, or Miter. Character actor again, best known for his roles in The Last Castle in 2001, the Robert Redford, James Gandolfini film. Yeah. Good film. Traffic in 2000. He also earned a Primetime Emmy nomination in the 2006 one-season-long Fox series called Thief. Shea Wiggum plays Private Wilson, another famous face, having appeared in lots of popular American films and TV. Tigerland with his second credit. He appeared as Eli Thompson in Boardwalk Empire. I remember him in that. Another military role came in 2017 in Kong Skull Island, where he played a captain. And he most recently appears, and I think, Matt, you saw this a couple of weeks ago, he appears in Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning for a little bit.
He does appear in Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, Tom Cruise's latest installment of the blockbuster Mission Impossible franchise. Hopefully we'll get some ads for that off Acast. But yeah, no, he is in that. He's like a CIA agent who is chasing Tom Cruise, and he's perfectly good in it. It's not an amazing role.
Rent a baddie or rent a cop.
Yeah,
kind of roles.
It's not one of those roles where you've got a lot to do other than run after Tom Cruise, really. But
he plays the main, I'd say, baddie, the main antagonist quite well in this. We'll talk more about the effectiveness of these characters later. So we have Tom Guiri or Guiri. I wondered how you'd say that. As Private Campwell. He actually played Trigger in U571. If you listened to last week's episode, you remember him.
Oh, yeah. For some reason, my brain immediately went, Only Fools and Horses. It was like that footballer from Sheffield Wednesday a few months ago, where you were like,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Barry Bannon.
I just had that exact same
That had its
situation
moment.
when you went trigger and I went, holy fuck.
Amazing. Now I want to edit their characters into the U-boat. That'd be funny.
Oh
You
my
know,
God.
Del Boy
But
falling
that's a
through
nice
the.
link back to U571.
That's nice. Yeah, Del Boy falling through the conning tower. That'd be great. He's also in Black Hawk Down in 2001. Hopefully, we'll be reviewing that soon. More on that when it comes. And he was in The Revenant in 2015, which I don't count it as a strict war film, but the start of that
There's some
is a
conflict and
pure
it's
war take. Yeah,
beautifully shot, actually.
it really is. Yeah. And then we have Cole Hauser, Staff Sergeant Kota. He's the son of Wings Hauser, famous for Siege at Firebase Gloria and coming up with the
Great film.
plot to Uncommon Valor. But yeah, his son is a prolific actor as well. He featured in Heart's War in 2002 alongside Farrell. Other credits include Tears of the Sun. I think he plays the machine gunner in that. It's quite good.
Need to be that one too.
Jarhead, yeah, Jarhead 2, Field of Fire. And he's currently starring as Rip Wheeler in the Smash Yellowstone series that I haven't seen because we don't get it over here quite easily. Like,
Yeah, it's huge. It is
it's
literally
massive.
huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a juggernaut, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
but I
yeah,
haven't seen anything either.
no,
I've seen
me
that
neither.
one clip of Kevin Costner like firing a rifle into the air, trying to scare off some
Right.
tourists that were trying to like get photos with a bear.
Okay.
That's
Wow.
the one thing that Instagram
Leave
and
my bears
YouTube Shorts keep
alone.
showing me. Yeah.
Then we have Nick. Is it Secrecy or Secre? Cesri? I'm gonna whatever one it is, Nick. I'm very sorry that I've butchered it. He plays Captain Saunders. He has a recurring role on Justified that had Timothy Olyphant in it. Film credits include Shape of Water, Moneyball, Castaway, 1 Hour Photo, just another proper prolific character actor. So many credits. I'm really doing a lot of these guys a disservice by just listing some credits, but there's just so much that they've done.
Yeah, we'll be here all day.
We'd be here for a while. Then we have Neil Brown Jr. as Pat Kearns, Private Kearns. His first film credit as well on Tigerland. He goes on to be Motown in Battle Los Angeles, one of me and Matt's favorites.
Yeah.
He also played DJ Yeller in 2015 Straight Out of Compton. And he also, at the moment, appears as Raymond Perry in the SEAL Team show on CBS.
Oh, yeah. I've seen a
which
few
is
of those. Yeah.
like NCIS for the army. It's
Yeah.
the best way of
Special
saying
Forces
that.
NCIS. Yeah.
Like, yeah. It's great, though. It's proper, just have your dinner with it kind of
No,
TV.
it's like Ultimate Force, but American.
Yeah, it's like me and my missus watch SWAT all the time
Yeah.
when we're eating our dinner because you can just turn it off and you know the good guy's going to win. That's why we like it. It's easy to watch. Then we have nearly round out the cast here, Matt. Stay with me. Afemo
I'm holding on.
Omilani plays Sergeant Everland. He's perhaps best recognisable. And I knew him from somewhere when I saw him. He played the drill sergeant in Forrest Gump.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
Okay.
And he also appeared in Glory in 1989. And he's just got a sea of TV credits, including.
He's very good in the few
really
scenes
good.
he has. He's good in
He's
this.
great in everything. All these actors are great in everything. To be fair, now, that's one thing about the cast. It's a very good cast. No one's letting the side down. TV roles include Miami Vice, Law and Order, and True Detective, and just a slew of more credits. And then this one's interesting because out of all of them, I think I was expecting to see this actor the least. We have Michael Shannon as Sergeant Fillmore in about 3 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, what a scene though.
Yeah, and film fans will know that Michael Shannon goes on to be a 2-time Academy Award nominee for Best Supporting Actor. And this is a real early role for him. It's like his 6th credit. He's in Pearl Harbor. He's Colonel Spencer in 12 Strong. He's Zod in the current Superman, whatever Warner Brothers is doing with their IP at the moment.
Okay.
He's Zod. Other credits include 8 Mile, Revolutionary Road, Groundhog Day, and a reoccurring role in Boardwalk Empire again. Really nice to see him. I really like Michael Shannon. I really
He's a
hope
great
he
actor.
gets his Oscar because he's absolutely fantastic in whatever he's in. But yeah, that was the cast. All very, very reputable and competent actors at their craft. And that will segue us nicely into the one word review this week. What did you guys think? Now, I think this week, I think Tigerland isn't as seen as some people think. So I think Tigerland is actually underrated because a lot of our FOF listeners hadn't seen it.
Mm.
So Ian McKellen just comes out with it and says, I need to rewatch before I cast judgment. Tom Petch goes with BFA. David Curran goes with Rain. Lance Nielsen goes with Awesome. Brian Suits says Poop. And he says it was technically accurate. And he likes the fact that the M16s had the right flash hiders.
Yep.
Martin Collin goes with Blanks. Hobby Buzzard said, saw this in the cinema and haven't seen it since. Needs a revisit. Will goes with Forgotten. And he does add, we'll mention it because it made me laugh. Thought it was shite at the time, but might enjoy it now. Gotta admit, I watched this movie when I was like 10, when it came out, or whenever.
Was young Robbie bored?
I thought it was boring as F. And then I watched it when I at uni, and I still thought it was boring. And I'll let you know later what I think. M. Radman goes with Humid. Peter, aka Spez Baby, goes with interesting choice, and he says beefcake. Might be referring to anyone in that movie. To be fair, Adam Bengston, Adam Bengston goes with Premonition, and Rob Hanna goes with always meant to watch this. And rounding us out, Pat in VA says cherries. So it's a mixed one this week. I think we caught a few people off guard when we said we were going to review it. It's, to be fair, it's one of the movies that we originally put on there's this fabled, if you're a long time listener, you may know, but there's a fabled fighting on film Google Drive that at the moment is probably fighting for its life with neglect.
It's full.
It's heaving with movies. Some we've
it's
reviewed,
like 300 films on it at this point.
It's heaving. And this is up there in ones we've put on.
One day we'll publish it
right at the start. Yeah, you can see how many we've added and how many we haven't added, but then have gone on to review. But yeah, this is one of those movies, and I think maybe with that one we should go into the alley tally, because I think we're going to have more to say in favourite scenes and final thoughts this week than alley tally.
Probably. Hello there. Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to let you know that you can now join our supporting cast over on Patreon. As thanks for your support, you'll be able to help us pick films, submit questions for guests, have first pick on brand new and exclusive merch, and much more. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show. Tom Petch, the friend of the show, mentioned
go and watch his film,
BFAs.
The Patrol, if you haven't.
Yes,
it's fantastic.
Absolutely. Interesting one, because they are quite interesting. Like a plot device, a prop.
And BFA stands for blank firing adapters, for anyone that
it does.
We should have cleared that up.
I should have mentioned that. Yeah,
you should have said that. Yeah,
but they are the early style blank adapter. And Wilson very naughtily takes his off in the final scenes. I thought the M16s in this were really interesting. The M16s got the 3-prong flash hiders. And some of them are without the forward assists.
Yeah.
And did you notice that some of them have like a weirdly mocked up forward assist attached to the side of them?
Yeah, I thought it looked a bit chunky.
It looks like someone's glued on a AA battery to the side of the receiver.
Yeah,
look like a forward assist.
I'm sure I saw some bird cages in there as well.
Yeah, no, there is a smattering. There's definitely rifles with forward assists, and there's definitely rifles with bird cages as well.
I mean, it kind of makes sense for a training school to have earlier ARs and later ARs to mix together. I think that's not awful.
It's not something I would pick up on and be like, that's wrong. Because
no, it's not. I wasn't. Nothing about this movie is wrong.
I think that the tacked on forward assist, which is the little plunger that's on the right side of the receiver, if you've ever seen one,
I would have noticed it less if it was just an AR-15 without one.
Yeah, I really don't think it would have mattered if they hadn't shown it.
But then again, we're M16 lovers, aren't we? We're M16 enjoyers, so we would notice this.
The other thing I was going to mention is that they don't put 30-round magazines in any of them, which is nice.
Very nice inclusion.
Plausibly could at this point
Mm,
1971, you could have 30 round mags, but
yeah, yeah.
they weren't the norm.
No, not
Definitely not with
72, 73
M16A1s.
more so. But then you've got to think the sheer amount of 20 round mags they've already produced.
Exactly.
Like
Um,
it's the thing that Vietnam War historians love to talk about. It's the sort of, oh, well, 30 rounds is not wrong. You always hear that a lot. And I'm like, yeah, but they're not really right either. Because the amount of troops, bog standard Green Machine American Grunt is not getting their
yeah,
hands on lovely 30 round mags probably until the mid 70s in
yeah,
any real
it's a reenacted
capacity.
debate, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
What else have we got in there? M60 got that nice little scene where they're
Yeah,
on
one
like
of
a
them.
live fire
Mm,
exercise, or it's like a battle inoculation.
yeah.
Um,
That's what Fort Polk is, isn't it? It's the Vietnam simulation area.
yeah, Tigerland, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
real
like
thing.
it's an
Between
amalgamation of a few
62 and
places.
73,
Yeah,
Tigerland existed at Polk. But yeah, M60 is firing over them, which I'm just going to cover this now because I'll forget later. But in that, where they're all lying in that trench, and
yeah,
Mitre has kind of led them under the gun, and if they all got out the trench, they'd end up being shot at by the M60 that's firing over people's heads.
yeah,
Farrell's character tells everyone to get down, but then the sergeants come over, they call ceasefire, the sergeants come over, have a conversation, confrontation, and then he tells them all to like get down again in the trench. And I
yeah.
never, I've watched it like twice, and I was like, I don't understand why he's telling them to get down again. Stay in the trench, get down. Like, I don't understand.
I think is it.
Is he thinking they're going to start firing again while everyone's stood on the edge of the trench? Like, what's he thinking?
Yeah, I just think it's showing you how confused he is actually at what he's doing.
Maybe.
Like, and yeah, and I think there's a lot of things where I'm like, why is that character saying or doing this thing, in this movie? I've got it down as possibly the least Ali film we've ever done so far.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Like,
oh, there's a modern plastic water bottle that rolls
did you,
down
did you
the bed
read
of
that on
the
IMDb, then
Bardus.
see it in the movie? Because I
No,
did.
I saw it and then read
Oh
IMDb, and I
right,
was like, oh my god, someone else spotted it.
yeah,
But it does
a
like
bottle of Evian rolls in
yeah, when Farrell drops is it like a
like a
ration
sea rat
tin in
can. Yeah,
yeah down the exhaust of the two ton, the Mardus, whatever it is, it sort of like slams on and they all go flying,
yeah.
and everyone's already down the end of the truck,
Thinking you'll get
and then
it's
the bottle
not
rolls
the
out, and
focal point. You really have to look for it.
it's very
Yeah.
visible though. It
It
did make
is
me
though.
laugh.
It's funny. Yeah, we love a gaff every now and then. Yeah, I've just got it down as the least Ali one because there are very little scenes that feature weaponry. The actual ins and outs of war aren't really explored in this one. This is much more of a
It's a
man's
human. Yeah.
effect on war's effect on men type film.
Mm,
Which we'll get into. But I've got down interesting that they have OG 107 uniforms, the ones with the buttons, the more sort of
right.
50s looking
Mm,
things, because they could be wearing third pats at the time. I'm not saying it's wrong what they're wearing at all. I know that uniform is still in use in some capacity for quite a while. I thought they might have switched over to third patterns when they were in the simulated Vietnam,
yeah, that
but
would
they
have made
wear
sense, I suppose.
heavy M69 jackets,
Mm,
which don't they look? They're not wrong because they are right for 72.
yeah,
They're
they were
still in
issued at the
service,
time, but
but I'm like, you're in this simulated hot, sweaty environment and you're not wearing jungle fatigues that you would be wearing out in Nam unless there's some, unbeknown to me, there was a like a logistical issue. The reason they didn't have them, I'm not trying to say that it's wrong because it's everything's right. It just stuck out a little bit for me, but
yeah, they've
that's a
got all
real
the
little one.
is it M65 pattern webbing and that
Yeah,
kind of
M65
stuff?
webbing,
Yeah,
everything's right, nothing's wrong.
yeah,
No jungle boots. They're all wearing big sort of black. I forget what they call the service boot. They're not wearing jungle boots. Bit weird as
right.
well. But then you could
Hmm.
make the assumption, well, they're not in the jungle yet, so they wouldn't have been issued the boots. But then I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's just what they've been
okay, that's
issued
kind of not.
at
Yeah,
AIT, I
it's
guess, but
nothing's wrong. There's an M1911 in there with two-handed pistol firing, which I
there is, yeah.
think the US Army stopped. they taught their men to fire one-handed. I think it was until like 1969 or 1970 or something.
I do not know. I will happily
It's
admit that that is
anecdotally I've heard that.
something that you need to go back through the
Yeah,
PAMs and have a look at, I think.
it's like
But
it was in an Osprey. Historians will hate me for this, and I am one, so I shouldn't really be like an Osprey book that I read many
yeah, but it's
years
not
ago.
Wikipedia, Rob. You're not quoting
No, I know,
Wikipedia,
and
so
I'm
it's
probably
fine.
paraphrasing the thing, but apparently, until the early 70s, US troops were taught to fire one handed with a pistol. And then this one, they're firing two handed. So I
Yeah.
wondered, it's
Well,
1971, so is that a new,
it
has that just come in and is that a thing?
it varies, doesn't it? Because there is 1940s pistol shooting clips, like training clips of guys like firing
Oh,
teacup
okay. Oh,
style
well,
as
that might
well.
be a complete crock then, for all
So
I know.
I no, I don't think it is. I think it varies, and I think it kind of ebbs and flows, and it depends on the branch and
Okay. Yeah, that makes
as
sense.
well. And I couldn't really say for like certainty, but yeah, they are doing the double hand grip, and
Yeah.
they are quite clearly firing blanks because your hands move a bit more than
Right.
what they're moving.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
we'll talk
And I
about this
think and I
1911
think by
scene in a
mentioning
moment.
all this ancillary stuff proves how little in the
It
way of
really does.
alien kit there
You
is in
have to
this.
go pretty niche
We were
to
digging.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Really
Oh well,
digging
they
this
didn't
week.
start using two-handed grips to fire 1911s until
We were going there. We were plumbing the depths. Rivet counting. Sometimes you have to revert to it. Maybe we should segue into favorite scenes.
I think it's time for favorite scenes.
I don't really have a favorite scene this week, um, and it it's a very hard film to pin down for me. Um, I really like the scenes where they finally get to the Tigerland Vietnam recreation
Yes,
village.
yeah.
I I just wanted to see more of that because I think it was where the cast were at their most vulnerable because
Mm.
it's going to be simulating something they don't know, and yet we only spend really half an hour of the movie there, um, and and then everything else I've
It's
got.
an odd plot device, isn't it? In that we're waiting for them to get to Tigerland. They finally get to Tigerland, and it's just, in a lot of senses, more of the same. It's not shown as being any any more arduous, really, than some of the stuff that they've already
Yeah,
been doing. Other
mm,
than they meet the new sergeant, and he's got a cool background, which I'm sure Rob will talk about in a
yeah,
second. And they go into that little simulated Viet Cong Vietnamese village,
mm,
and then they have a weird sort of face-off between two platoons, um, which
yeah.
is instigated.
And the training sergeant just happily lets the two groups beat the fuck out of each other
Yeah,
before he
yeah,
stops them. And I'm like, I can understand that he may have seen something like this happen. He may have seen a platoon go in, start beating up
yeah,
Viet
but that's
Cong.
not what he wants them to
But that's
do.
not what he wants them to do here. This is meant to be by the book training that is going to try to set you up to help you. And this is where the movie falls down for me. I need the the plot line itself is fine, and we're gonna jump into final thoughts quick because I've got way more to say about this movie than I do favorite scene. So I'm gonna not try and jump in before Matt has had his favorite scene. But what this movie's doing, I would have much preferred to have seen in this jungle training environment rather than being locked to barracks and
Yeah,
locked to this town in that's like attached to the barracks. Like I just feel like it would have been more interesting to explore how war affects these guys' psyche in the simulated war environment.
yeah, no, I agree. I agree
Like
there,
Southern
definitely.
Southern Comfort does it much better,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
movie isn't like this at all. It's like a weird Deliverance knockoff, um, but it does the same thing
That's a
and it
film
does
we
it
need to
better.
do because
Oh yeah,
it's yeah.
it's a fun one. It's kind of the same thing. Like there's,
Hmm.
it's kind of the same sort of character types in that. But anyway, Matt, before we go into final thoughts, I've got way more to say. Favorite scene for you, if you have one.
Yeah, I think my favorite scene is the scene just after Farrell has them stay down in the trench to avoid the M60 fire. and he has that nice little scene with Ezra, the sergeant. I forgot his second name.
Oh, that is good.
Um,
Mm,
I like that bit. I thought it was really interesting that the sergeant like kind of broke with the hard NCO
yeah. It was clearly a
persona
mask he was wearing. Yeah.
and told him, my name is, I'm doing this because I've been there. I don't want to see people die.
Mm,
Um, but again, that scene was great, but there was an element to it that I just could not believe. Like Farrell gets up, takes off his webbing, sits down, starts lighting up a cigarette and offers the sergeant one. It's just like I just can't see that happening.
yeah,
That it was
it's
a
this
lovely
too.
scene, well written,
Yeah.
but it just doesn't feel authentic or likely.
It it feels like it would have been better served cutting away, having him in the stockade, and him having this conversation through the barred window with the guy, or to his guard or something, like where he can have this candid
Some
conversation.
corporal would have been like he would have, ragged him out. Like a corporal would have steamed in, ragged him out. The sergeant would have said, "Get him out of here," and
Mm.
then he would have been dragged off. That's probably what would have happened.
Yeah, I would have preferred that. The scene works, but I think it would work better somewhere else, because then we
Because
could
it
have had.
completely undermines the NCO's, authority.
Mm, mm.
He can't be seen to be having a friendly chat with someone who is
I mean,
undermining authority and discipline so
yeah,
much.
I understand like man management, like the man management element of it. And I know that's more of a modern thing in the army, like individual men, individual people. I don't know if necessarily if it was back like that back in like early
Yeah,
70s in the US Army. But the thing is, the scenes in this movie do work. It's how they're staged and how they're framed that don't work for me. So maybe going into final thoughts, um, the characterization isn't there enough for me to buy these characters as people, because they're all set.
yeah,
There's all stereotypes. You've got Paxton. He's the educated one who's there to try and write a book. You've got the
yep.
religious fanatic. You've got the racist
Mm-hmm.
redneck. You've got
Mm-hmm.
the black soldiers who just want to get through with their buddies. You've got stereotypical grizzled, horrible sergeant. You've got
Yep.
old lieutenant officer type who just is doing it because it's his job and
Yeah.
all that kind
You've
of
got
thing.
good NCO,
Good NCO, bad
bad
NCO.
NCO.
Yeah.
Someone plays a harmonica at night at one point.
Yeah. Cole, I'll talk about in a minute, but like that, they're fine to have those stereotypes, absolutely fine. But I
Mm-hmm.
want
Mm-hmm.
to know more about the people. Like I never felt like why was I rooting for Boz? Why? Why did I care about him? Why? Give me a reason, because I don't know about his family life. I don't know about how he got drafted, why he didn't just elope the minute the draft card came. Because if he doesn't want to be in the army that much, why is he even there in the first place? Like, so many guys got their draft cards and just burnt them and fucked off to Canada.
Yeah.
Like, and he
Yeah.
goes, "Oh, why would I want to go and be with all the mooses?" Like,
Mm.
but it's not being in the army,
He's
boss.
he's a very conflicted character in that he is shown as quite obviously being a capable soldier and leader,
Mm.
but
A
then again,
smart
he's
guy.
also yeah, exactly. He's also conflicted about he could escape numerous times. He could jump
Yeah.
off that top of that train car, break his leg. He
Mm.
could just go AWOL
You
because
just run off in
he's
that town. No one will
shown
find
is
him.
shown as being able to just go AWOL.
Yeah.
He organizes a pickup so he can get dropped off
Mm.
in Mexico.
Exactly.
Doesn't do it.
And I know he has a
So
friendship with
he
Paxton.
clearly feels conflicted and wants to be there,
Mm.
and he has that link with Paxton, as you say. But at the same time, it's an interesting characterization.
And they also want to portray him as this too cool for school, James Dean,
Yeah,
Marlon Brando type figure, because he's got that about him in early thousands. He's a good looking guy. He's got the chiseled jaw. He's a stereotypical, um, you know, lead male actor looking
yeah,
guy. So I get they want to do this, Tim, but in by doing the too cool for school stuff and the sort of barrack room lawyer stuff, I'm like, the army would just lock you up for this.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah.
and,
No,
and
it'd be
I'm
like yeah.
really trying not to put my reality goggles on. I'm really trying to see this as
Mm.
entertainment. I'm really trying. But there comes a point where I'm like, yeah, well, he just wouldn't get away with this sort of thing. I can understand him working the people out around him that really shouldn't be there. I can get that. That's
Yeah.
fine. But then when you have an opportunity to fuck off and all you've done the whole movie is talk about, well, I could go here, I could get out, and then you don't. I'm like, well, what? That you're not telling me why you're keeping yourself here. You're implying it, but you're not telling me as a viewer.
I don't think as a character he knows. I think
No, I
that's the
don't.
thing. I,
I
I
don't think he
don't
does.
think
But
he
he
knows
never
why he
explicit.
doesn't go,
Yeah, he doesn't have to
other
tell
than
me.
that link to Paxton at the very end of the film.
Yeah,
Before that, I don't see why he wouldn't try and get out in his
yeah.
own way.
But then I don't feel I have enough skin in the game for Boz as a person, i.e.,
Yeah.
building him as a complete character. Don't feel I have enough. He never mentions his home life. He never mentions, oh, I've got dreams. I want to go and do this. There's never a reason for it. It just feels like he's being hard and abrasive for the sake of it sometimes.
Yeah,
But that's
that's
not my
fair.
only problem. My second one is that it feels like we only get halfway into the plot when we get to the Vietnam simulation right near the end. It feels like we're only halfway in.
Mm.
Like I feel like I've just got to know these people, and then the movie
Yeah.
wants to wrap up because oh no, they've got to go to Vietnam. We don't have the budget to show that. Like
Yeah,
it,
yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it takes on like big Southern Comfort vibes at the very end,
mm, mm,
where Wilson has obviously just been moved to another company, another
yeah,
platoon.
yeah,
Um, because we have this great scene at the range with 1911s, which you mentioned a little bit earlier.
mm-hmm.
And there's a
It all
scene
ramps,
where
doesn't it, in that last 40
it
minutes?
does, and the last act ramps a lot. So Farrell and Paxton, Boz and Paxton, I should say, come back from town one evening, and Wilson attacks him when he re-enters the barracks, and Boz gets the better of him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's really embarrassed the next day, isn't he? He's on the back of the truck,
Yeah.
like shouting, "You should apologize!" And like, but everyone's like, "Well,
But
why?"
you attacked
He
him.
could have,
My
you
whole thing
attacked
in that
him,
scene, I
and
was
you
like,
could
you
have,
instigated it, you idiot.
yeah,
That's the whole
exactly.
point, though, isn't it? That's the
But he's
reason why
steaming, and he's clearly not
his pride's been hurt.
mentally stable
Yeah.
at all. He shouldn't be there. Yeah.
No. Well, that's
Anyway,
the
they get
thing
to
with
the
the
range.
lowering the IQ, lowering loads of stuff to get people in. It's that whole part of
Yeah,
the
there are
war.
mentions of that sort of societal stuff,
Mm.
which I thought was interesting. There's
Not enough
nice
of. We'll
nods
come on
to
to that.
racial tension
Yeah,
and other societal elements of like class and
definitely.
stuff, and where you're from. Like
Mm.
Paxton's from upstate New York, and a lot of the guys from like poor southern rural areas
Yeah,
are resentful of that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because at this point they haven't been through the ringer that is Vietnam, so they haven't
No,
really had that bond,
they
I
haven't. Yeah, they
suppose,
haven't got
that you
anything
see in
to
other films.
hang
Yeah,
on. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But as I was saying, so they go to the range and they're firing pistols, and Wilson kind of fires a couple of rounds and then decides, no, I'm going to shoot someone.
yeah. Comes out of nowhere,
Wilson,
kind of.
he kind of decides he's going to shoot Paxton or possibly even
Yeah, this
Boz.
is like before the beating, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's afterwards. It
Or
is
is it
afterwards.
after?
Yeah, it's the bit.
Is
So
it?
there's the it gets beaten up by Boz. They
Oh,
get on the back of
okay.
the truck on the way to
Right.
the range. They're arguing. They're at the range.
Oh,
He he walks towards I think it's Paxton who's on the line. Um and then he kind of threatens Boz as well. And then
yeah,
there's
that's
this
it.
whole thing where you were really lucky. They kind of wrestled the gun away from him and
Yeah,
overpower
yeah,
him
yeah.
because the gun doesn't fire. And like you were really lucky. And then there's a scene with the captain character, and he's like, that could have killed you and three people next to you, which is ludicrous. There's no way. And he describes it as like it's a misfeed, an out of battery misfeed, um, which the
God
pistol's
knows.
clearly in battery. which means that the slides forward, there's probably a round in the chamber because he only fired like 3 rounds.
Yeah.
If there was an out of battery misfeed, the slide would be slightly open. You'd see a round stuck in the ejection port. There's no way it would have fired.
Yeah.
So they didn't introduce like a malfunction for that scene. So the armorer could have easily done that if he'd known that
Maybe.
that was what was needed. But the whole idea that if Wilson had pulled the trigger, it would have killed Boz, Paxton, whoever was near him.
Yeah, it just seems like he's laying it on thick for their sake, really.
It's
In
just
that
not
scene.
possible. Like anyone
Because
who's been through basic training knows that that is not what would happen.
yeah.
Like the firer would be injured, definitely.
Mm.
Like there's a very good chance of that, but it wouldn't kill him. Probably
Like that,
wouldn't kill him,
my
and it
issue
wouldn't
there
kill those around him.
in that scene, it's telegraphs so much that he's going to try and kill
Yeah.
Boz. It just telegraphs it so much, and I'm like, we're clearly not going to do that because it's like half an hour
Because the
left of
captain's
this
like,
film.
let me handle it my way. I'll get him out of
yeah,
the
he's
tomb.
terrified of
like
court-martialing anyone. And I'm like,
it
oh,
doesn't
it
want
was too much.
You know.
And I'm like, but that's why it's there to discipline men that are bad. Like, what the...
I suppose what that means, what they're trying to get at there is that it would look bad for his record.
That's it, yeah.
If he's got, because he hates it when people are getting like hardship
passes, getting out.
What's the word?
Discharge.
Discharge. Thank you. Absolute like brain fade then.
With this story, Matt, you really should know these words before you start.
I know, it's very true. But it's a weird scene. For me, the other scene actually I did mention favorite scenes was I like the one where Wilson thinks he's going to get made platoon guide, and then he's just kind of put on the table by Ezra, the sergeant. He's crestfallen, and it's great. But for me, I think really there's parts of the film that don't work because they, as you say, they don't explain the background of the character.
Yeah.
But all in all, it's a competently made film. It's really nicely shot for, on the 16mm, it looks great. There's a lot of interesting angles are used, a lot of interesting bits of shot composition. There's some really good performances, but it does drag a bit.
It's a flawed movie for me. It's flawed.
It is flawed. I agree.
I mean, like when I mentioned it, I feel like we get halfway through. I feel like it should have got to them being in a simulated Vietnam experience a lot earlier. It would have been interesting to split the two groups between the guys that genuinely want to go and guys that are a bit apprehensive, and have them with Boz. And you could maybe have had a scenario where, Wilson and them lot end up playing the OPFOR, the Vietnam forces, or whatever, and then you can have conflict there because they are meant to be fighting each other. You could have had something there. There's a lot more to explore there, and then we get to Cole House's character, where he's playing this
breath of fresh air.
Really, comes in. He's an imposing actor. He has a very chiseled look to him. Looks the part, and he says, "Look, I've done 2 tours. First tour was with 101st Airborne in '68. Second tour just with Mac V. So he's been through some shit, right? At this point, and he goes, "I'm here to train you. Things I'm going to teach you will save your life, hopefully." And it's this whole thing of, we have men that are just doing their jobs, and then we have men that care. Cole seems like a man that cares, but he's been hardened by the war around him, and he isn't going to take any of their shit because he genuinely knows that shit will kill them. All the NCOs to this point beforehand seem like guys that haven't done a tour yet. Or if they have done a tour, they haven't done 2 tours like Cole, and it's really sort of affected them. Only Ezra and Cole are the 2 people that...
Yeah, Ezra was there. He says he was there in '68, doesn't he?
But everyone else, like the sergeant...
Interestingly...
but the sergeant that continually beats everyone up, that just seems like his job is to do that. Like, it doesn't seem like he cares enough about these people.
No, exactly.
And then he comes in, and I was just thinking to him, I don't know how you felt about this, I don't know what the listeners will think, but I was thinking, I want a movie from your point of view.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah, from a point of view of someone who's done it, knows how hard it is, knows how fleeting life can be, and the fact you probably don't want to be there yourself, but you've signed up or you've been drafted, so you might as well fucking get on with it mentality. And then you've got these late stage draftees, because bear in mind, people might not know on the pod, by mid 73, Yanks have pulled out of NAM. The ground force militarily, they still have air presence up until 75, more or less. So, these draftees at this point, they're not the ideal soldier types. They're broken men. They're men that really shouldn't be there, physically, mentally, however you want to portray it, say it. And it would have been very interesting just to see a movie from his point of view, because you don't get anything else from these interesting characters. They don't have anything more to say than, I'm teaching you things that could save your life. And that's it. And it's a real shame. And to sort of echo what you were saying, I think it doesn't go deep enough into the context of the war at this time. A placard, title card at the start saying counterculture has taken over the US a little bit. The anti-war sentiment is larger than ever. The armies, the draftees gradually coming in, and they don't want to be there. This is some of those men. I just feel like a little bit of history at the start, as potted as it may be, just to set up why these men are the way they are. Because they say it through dialogue, but unless you really know that part of the early 70s in the US, an audience outside's not really going to know that much. Maybe. And I felt it wasn't as hard-hitting as other anti-war films that we've done, like The Hill or Attack, that deal with it, although differently. They have the same themes of men's being affected by the war and combat's effect on men and all that kind of themes. And I think those two movies just deal with it a lot better. And those movies are more entertaining and not as slow and dull as this one can be.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I watched the trailer for this, when we decided to do it, and the film is weird. The trailer is weird in that it makes the film look like it's going to be like a coming of age, like positive thing, where it starts off with like, Colin Farrell's he's a troublesome soldier, and there's a bit with the captain
he's a
where he's like,
renegade. Yeah,
you'd be a great soldier if you tried, and then it kind of like has some like 2000 happy film music.
Oh, really? Where to see this?
Comes in at the end, and it's like, you could be a good soldier, and then it shows him like doing a bit of leading and stuff, and you're like, okay.
That song that goes, a moment of love, a dream, a lie, a kiss, a cry, just starts in the background, like that really uplifting song.
But I think for me, the film it's in terms of scripting, it's a little bit off, and in terms of the way that the story is told, I think the concept is interesting. I think the problem for me is I just don't believe that the training style and the discipline of that period, and even today probably, just would not allow someone to rebel as much as he does and slip through. No. I just don't feel it's probably accurate.
That's because I got to a point and I was like, well, you just be removed from this situation by now. Yeah. And if this is, we talked about it earlier a lot, and I think it comes back to it. If character of Boz really didn't want to be there, he'd have found a way not to be there. Yeah, and I think that's what annoyed me at the end. And then you get the ending really annoyed me, where I was like, oh, you're going to do it, aren't you? You're going to do that thing where you think I care about your fictional character enough. And they go, the last time I saw Boz was when he went to Vietnam. I'm paraphrasing. It's like, some guy said he just disappeared in Vietnam. Some guy said they saw him in Mexico with a beautiful woman. And I'm like, why do I don't care? I don't know anything about this guy. You spent the last hour and a half trying to tell me about him, and I know nothing about the bloke. He's a conflicted young man in early 70s America. That's it.
And I think it's interesting because the film climaxes with they're in the swamp, and it's platoon v platoon. Wilson's leading his platoon.
Yeah.
Boz is leading his. Wilson has somehow gotten some live ammunition and takes his blank adapter out.
Where from? Motivations we never find out.
Yeah, I mean, why is he so murderous? Why does he want to kill someone?
And there's another
so
guy that's one
much.
of Wilson's cronies, and he hates Boz, but you never get any lines from him. Like, it feels
Well,
like we're
the thing
missing
is, Rob,
scenes about
the
these
thing is, Wilson isn't
antagonists.
even introduced as the original like antagonist
No,
because there's
it was
another guy that's
it was
introduced.
Nita for like half
Yeah,
an hour.
yeah,
Yeah,
is introduced, and then he is
he has a
assisted by Boz
breakdown
to
and he's
escape.
left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Anyway, so in the
Yeah.
end,
The movie can't pick who the
Boz
bad guy is. It
Boz
annoys me.
fires his rifle, which has a blank adapter, and the gases hit Paxton in the eye, and that gets him his discharge, which is great. And then at the end of the film, I hated the end, the final scene where Farrell is like ripping apart
That's just dickhead behavior. I'm like, what are you doing that for?
Paxton's
What's
book,
mean?
and then just like
Yeah.
waves to him. Like,
Oh,
how is
fucked
that
your
supposed
book
to
up.
endear us
Bye.
to him? Yeah,
Exactly.
like the
Yeah.
guy's been writing that book since like in his notebook since before he
Yeah.
met
Yeah.
Farrell's
It's
character.
important to him. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I know
it's
that's
just
probably like an allegory for like, forget all this. It's not important in your life. You can go on to different things. And I'm like, bro had a dream and you're fucking his dream. He did
yeah.
everything to help you try and get away. And right at the end, you're like, fuck your notebook. Yeah, shit. You know, it's a bit
It's
weird.
just it's a weird climax
Yeah.
to the way that that's done. It's just, as I said, the film's
It's
competent,
flawed.
but it's flawed,
Flawed to
and
me.
it probably deserved better than it got at the box office. But obviously, Farrell was recognized for being, a good actor, competent
Yeah.
actor that can lead a film, and that's launched his career, which is a great thing.
Without this film, Matt, you don't get 2016's Total Recall.
I mean, everyone hates that, but I
That's
love the
why I
original.
said
Everyone hates it,
it.
but is it that bad? Is it?
No, not really.
No,
No, no. I mean,
it's
that
not great, but it
did that
wasn't
movie.
needed.
That
Basically,
movie made some money. It might have still been a flop, but you could probably
yeah,
make 4 Tigerlands for the money.
yeah. It totally wasn't needed.
No, no. But yeah, getting back to this, I think you're right. It's flawed. Southern Comfort does the same thing pretty much,
mm,
and there's a bit of action in there as well near the end.
yeah,
And don't get me wrong, Southern Comfort's a bit of a flawed film because it's 2 movies, really. It can't make up what it is
yeah,
anyway. But
and
I
it's super
expected
unlikely
more.
as well.
Yeah, it's a bit. I expected more from this one, seeing how revered it is online, and how much people like it, and to go full circle. I thought it was boring when I was 10. I thought it was boring when I was at university. I think it's a little bit boring now.
Yeah, it does drag, and
And that's
you
not me
don't.
saying I can't. Sorry to cut you quickly there. And that's not me saying I can't enjoy something cerebral and chatty. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, there we go. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the
are
show.
you really done? Are you?
Yeah, I'm done. I've got nothing else to say about it.
Last week, U571, yeah, it was flawed, but it was entertaining. I think this one's just a bit drab. And there we go. That was Tigerland. It's on Disney Plus. I should have mentioned earlier, but you can watch it easily. It's really cheap on DVD. There's a nice Enemy at the Gates Thin Red Line box set you can get with this.
That is such a weird match
the most
of films.
early thousands DVD. I've got it up on the shelf
Like,
there.
they were just like, you know what, 20th Century Fox, like, let's put 3 of the early 2000s greatest war movies together.
Yeah.
Enemy at the Gates, Thin Red Line, Tigerland. Someone's gone,
Brilliant.
yes, that's great.
Do it. Start the presses. As always, you can find the entire back catalogue of Final Film at finalfilm.com. Thanks to everyone who's listening. We recently broke into the top 20 film review pods in the country. So thanks a lot to everyone who's listening, leaving reviews. It means a hell of a lot to us to be in that chart, mixing it with the big boys. We're coming for you, Commode. We're coming for you, Blank Check Pod. No, this is we love all the podcasts. We love our podcast family. And yeah, do leave us a review because it really, really helps. And join us next week for another war movie review for your delectation. And this is me signing off for this week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye.